Germino, I always talked with him about that. I said, Mark Germino,
Hmm.
uh, I said, ain't many people can say Loretta Lynn cut one of their songs. You know
Mark
what I mean?
can
It was,
though. Mark can.
I mean, and Johnny Cash.
Yeah,
That's not bad company either.
man.
And so
I'll tell you what, I got
nobody needs to
goosebumps right
listen.
now just thinking about Mark Germino and just how much of a storyteller that guy was, man. And oh,
Oh my gosh, man! Well, I lost two dear friends this past year. Now I've done shows with I did shows with J.D. Souther, did shows with and dear friend Waylon Holyfield,
yeah,
uh, uh, and Dave Loggins. Uh, but two very close friends. I mean that I grew up in the bars with and hanging out with was Mark Germino and Malcolm Holcomb. I don't know if you're familiar with Malcolm or not,
hmm,
but you definitely need to check that out. I mean, he was truly one of a kind, and I learned a lot from both of those fellows because they were fearless writers. They there was no well, they'll never sing that on the radio. That never ever entered their mind. Uh, and both were absolute geniuses in their own right.
yeah, agreed, agreed. And I've listened to a lot of Mark Germino over the year. I mean, his own albums are just absolute fire, as the kids say nowadays, man. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, man, you can't.
My biggest thrill is he would call me and he'd say, "We're going for a ride. I'm gonna play you the new record," and we'd literally just ride around and listen to his album, and it was a highlight because you felt like you were privy to hearing something nobody else had heard yet.
Well, you and Mark are a major reason. I'll just tell you a little bit about my background, Tony, before I get back into a couple more questions I have, if you don't mind. Um, I stopped doing the whole interview thing not long after we met in Linden, Texas, and I think it was another month or so that I did it, and then I decided to get back into it 6 years or 5 years later. And a major reason why I wanted to do this again was because of you and Mark, and not really getting to talk to you guys as long as I wanted to the first time. And that interview, that episode is obviously out on YouTube and Spotify and everywhere. And I would get comments almost every month. You know, you need to get Tony and Mark more one on one. We'd love to hear more from both of those guys. And that would eat at me over the years, man. It hurt me that I really needed to really flesh those out. And so,
Well, well, I'm glad if that's the case, then I'm very happy because that's great. And I'm going to tell you something. Here's how important what you're doing is. Me notwithstanding, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about anybody else you talk to. We're talking about people who are gone now that you'll never talk to again, that you'll never get any more out of. So any bit of chronicling, any bit of capturing that we can do these days is great because, you know, I mean, to know that no one will ever sit down again with Chris,
mhm.
that's like
And
that's
that's what I
hard to
was
believe.
getting at. That's what I was getting at. The reason why I finally decided, because my son was in my ear all the time. Dad, you think about this all the time. You need to get back into this. The thing that happened to Mark, him falling and passing away, just so randomly like that. And you're talking about chronicling. That's why I'm here now, because of that happening to Mark.
Oh,
And
that's wonderful. That's great because uh, I always marvel at these old documentaries on these bands from back in the day. Well, somebody had to really take a lot of time to get. I mean, I have to walk around with a pad and a pencil and a camera, an actual camera crew to get some of this stuff documented. But it's forever now, and I just did the thing down at the Country Music Hall of Fame last week, and you know, if not for somebody cataloging and curating all that, it goes by the wayside. So I applaud all the people who take the time to chase people down and do interviews with them and make sure that it's recorded. Uh, uh, who knows? mean, your conversation with Mark made you want to get back to doing it, and I'm glad you did. I truly am.
Yeah, it's so sad. I wish we could have gotten Mark and talked to him like we are with you today. And but yeah, the chronicling is important. The stories are important to me, and I know if they're important to me, they have to be important to other people as well. So that's kind of the gist behind it. Let's get back into your songwriting, though. You've been doing this a long, long time, Tony. Long time, not 100 years long. But I imagine there has to be some kind of evolution, looking back, that you can kind of put your stamp on in your songwriting. Are you able to reflect and see changes in your craft over the years?
Yeah, I Cowboy Jack Clement had a thing, about too clever, don't be too clever. I think that everybody approaches songs, early on as the hook, and it's got to, these certain elements that, everybody tells you have to be in a song. I think when I woke up was, uh, I remember the first time I wrote a song and I went, that's one of that's my song. I mean, I wasn't writing like trying to write something for somebody else. And it's one of the few songs I brought to Nashville with me. It was a song called "I'm Gone," and the other song that I brought to Nashville with me it was called "Same Old Story" that Garth and Tanya wound up cutting. But I mean, it's like you realize that these songs. I always tell writers who are trying to learn the craft or whatever, I just sit down and read great songs. That's the best shot you have of learning how to write one. Uh, why is this lyric so good? I mean, even with no music playing, why is it so good? So I think when I began to realize that uh, don't you have to write your songs. You can't write somebody else's, and you can't second guess somebody and say this would be really cool for so and so, and I think this is, this sounds like their last record or whatever. I think when you finally realize, and as I have, this is these are my songs, this is the way I write, and it's not necessarily right or wrong or better or worse or whatever it is, but it is, you do eventually, if you do it long enough, you know, I think you can pick out, I know who wrote that.
Well, it's
I
funny you
know.
mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation today that you came to Nashville and there were songwriting rules. And
Yeah.
now you're still in Nashville. And one thing I can say is, having talked to dozens and dozens and dozens of songwriters over the years, is that there are no rules. There is no right way to writing a song. And so that, to me, seems to be something that has massively changed between the time that you started in Nashville and now.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that change to? The no rules versus, a stringent guideline, so to speak, when you first got there.
Well, it's hard to argue with success,
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, so if something works that is, counter to the rules, well, suddenly, well, that rule doesn't matter anymore. You know, one song in particular that comes to mind with me, nobody would record the dance because it didn't have a bridge. So it's like the song's not done. Well, it was done. And I realized it was done every time I tried to write a bridge. It looked like, as I've always described it, is that, you got this perfectly nice house, and then your brother-in-law comes over and y'all drink a bunch of beer and decide to add a room to it.
So Vince Gill would
And
say, why put a bridge? The story's already been told.
that's right. That's right. But now that sometimes the rules, you don't do it because it's the rules, it's because you actually have something to say. I think the other song you mentioned, Here I Am, I mean, that bridge is the song.
Yep.
I mean, that bridge kind of it's not just a portion of the song, it's the retelling and the why of the song. So, uh, like I think that when things happen, you know, The House That Built Me, take that song, for example. I mean, that was around for 12 years. Nobody, it's like, that's not how, what do you mean the house that built you? That doesn't make any sense. Well, until you break it all down and realize how genius it is. And, uh, and then suddenly everybody wants a song just like that.
Yep.
Uh, and
Alan
I think,
Shamlin is crazy, crazy good. Just if you guys don't know the name Alan Shamlin, look that guy
and
up.
Tom
Oh my
Douglas,
gosh.
Alan Shamlin and Tom Douglas,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. I mean, and show you that, you got to write the best thing you can on that day. The brilliant artist, Miranda Lambert, who made that song famous and made that song, was probably, in roller skates when it was written. I mean, she was, probably 7 or 8 years old. I don't know.
Probably not
So,
wrong, to be fair.
well, no, and so that Alan Shamlin and Tom Douglas didn't sit down and go, "We're going to write a song for Miranda Lambert in the future." It's just they're going to write the best song they can on that day, and they wrote a doozy.
Yeah, oh my gosh, did they ever?
But it wasn't there again. There was a rule breaker. Tell me that there's no beer in it. There's no iced tea. There's no trucks. There's no nothing. It's just a great song. And also what it is it's a very simple song. And the genius of any great song is that you already know the story. You've already heard the joke. You know the punchline, but somebody has the wherewithal to tell it to you in a way you've never heard.
It's about
And
feel, right, Tony? It's about the word
yeah,
feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.